Good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webinar. I'm Margo Hale with the National Center for Appropriate Technology, and today's webinar is co-hosted with the Center for Arkansas Farms and Food, supported by the Midwest Transition to Organic Partnership Program. And we are pleased today to have Matt Gibson and Keith DeHaan with Food and Livestock Planning. They are going to share with us the results of a study that they did looking at how we can increase capacity for organic meat and poultry processing here specifically in Arkansas, but really I think these results are applicable to many states around the country. And before we get started today, I'm just going to launch a brief little poll so we can see who is joining us here today. So I am going to launch this real fast. If you could let us know who you are. Okay, so we'll share real fast. It looks like most folks here are farmers or ranchers, a couple of educators and nonprofit staff. So thank you everyone for joining us today. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Matt. So thank you once again for being here today.
Thank you very much, Margo, and good morning to all of our participants. My name is Matt Gibson with Food and Livestock Planning. We are so pleased to be here and share with you the findings of this recent study, which we have completed. And it has been submitted in a written form, and I believe Luke has put that up on the website. It is chock full of good information, and we are going to provide a brief review of that report today. But let me assure you that there is a lot more information in the report that we would certainly encourage each and every one of you to go out, download that, and give it a good read. And also, if you do have any questions or comments after or during the meeting or after the meeting, or after reading that, please feel free to reach out and we would be very happy to chat with you. Um, with that out of the way, what I would like to do is to get this poll out of the way. Okay, here we go. Okay. I would briefly like to introduce our team, Food and Livestock Planning. For those of you who do not know us, Dr. Keith DeHaan is joining us today. He will be doing the second half of the presentation this morning, basically presenting the results. Dr. DeHaan has been in food production for 45 years. 35 years of that has been in the meat industry, meat packing plant industry. Keith is a former C-suite executive in three large beef plants. And Keith has the dubious distinction of, I think, being the only person in America who has been in every large beef packing plant in the nation. So he has a lot of experience. I have been in the food industry for about 35 years, including meat and grain, and my focus is on production and financial modeling within our group. Steve Ballinger has been in the beef industry for the past 20 years, working in operations and as an executive. And Steve is our IT specialist, especially focusing on data collection. Dr. Samantha Egolf, is our meat scientist, muscle biologist. Her specialties are particularly food safety and quality assurance, and she's also specializes in grant writing. Scott Webb has been in food production for 45 years, again, 35 years in meat production. He has been an executive at Farmland Foods, Smithfield, Seaboard, and most recently, he was the CEO of Wholestone Foods, a large pork integrator who, when he retired, was slaughtering 30,000 head of hogs a day, and they were going to expand that. They were going to double that capacity. And last but not least, we do have a CPA, Tracy Christian, who is a former exec at E&Y. And she really specializes in high growth companies and really has a good understanding of production and manufacturing, which is where we spend most of our time. So that's our team. And so as we get into this actual report, I would like to just introduce that Dr. DeHaan, Keith DeHaan, was the project leader. I was sitting co-chair and co-author, did some of the research and the financial modeling, and then Dr. Egoff was the one who did the research for this project. Okay, so just to give you a very brief timeline of how we got to here today, March 11th, is we started the project with Luke and Heather back in July. We were commissioned by them back in July. We did a preliminary report and provided a brief review of that report back in February in Morrilton. There was a group meeting there under the guidance of Heather, and we had some folks join us by Zoom. But that was the preliminary report review. And then the final report, the final review was presented to Luke and Heather on February 18th. And as I said, that has been put up on the website, and we would encourage everyone to go out and have a look at that. So today we are going to provide a more complete review of the report itself. And then I would also like to share that we have received approval to proceed with a phase two, which is the execution phase of this project. And Dr. DeHaan will be discussing that in more detail here shortly. Okay, the original RFP, excuse me, please. The original RFP, in a nutshell, if I may, was to assess the potential for organic meat and poultry in Arkansas. Heather has already presented that, and that, in a nutshell, is the purpose of this study. That does involve live animal production, the processing of those animals into meat products, and then making that available in Arkansas. And then basically it was, to be summarized, is it economically viable? So that is the nutshell view, and we're going to look at the detailed view of the RFP now. So the brief description, and this was taken directly out of the RFP, is to examine the potential for developing or expanding organic meat processing capabilities in Arkansas, with the four subsections to be: assess the current infrastructure, examine the regulatory requirements, obviously, what is the market demand, and what is the economic viability of that effort. The second uh, uh, description was to develop a roadmap for establishing additional processing capabilities. And you will see in the report that this is an extremely important part of the process. So the primary objective then of this effort was to develop a comprehensive roadmap for establishing organic meat and poultry processing capabilities in Arkansas that address the current gap between organic livestock and poultry production and certified organic meat and poultry availability. That's a whole mouthful, but that is exactly what the objective was. So the secondary objectives to support that primary then was to assess the current meat processing infrastructure and capacity for organic certification, identify regulatory and certification requirements specific to organic meat processing, quantify demand from organic livestock producers for processing services. And as I briefly alluded to, we are beginning phase two, which will this will be continued into that phase two. Then to evaluate consumer market demand for locally processed organic meat products, analyze the economic feasibility, okay, including startup costs, operational requirements, and potential revenue streams. Identify funding opportunities and business models for facility development. This effort also will continue into phase two. This will be a key component of phase two as well. And provide actionable recommendations for implementation. And this will really be continued into phase two as well. So those executables will be continued into phase two, but these are the secondary objectives of phase one, okay? So before we actually start looking at any of the information, let me share with you where did we get the information from? So the primary source of our information was from our experience, our previous and current client work. We spent a lot of time working in this area. Organic, as you know, is not nearly as big as conventional meat and poultry production. And so this is not our primary area, but we are working in this area. And if I could have Dr. DeHaan address this very briefly, just some of the work, so you have a flavor of where we are coming from in our previous work. Dr. DeHaan, Keith.
Our first significant experience with that is in Northern California. We had a high net worth individual that had a lot of land resources that was converting that land resource into organic certified pastures and crop. They also were bringing in animals to get them certified organic. And then the next step was for us to help them design a processing facility that would process that. So they had all three phases completed. We did complete that work. We were the business planners for that. We were the the designers of the plant itself. And from there, I guess that began our experience with organic production and organic marketing. From there, we are currently even working today with another facility in California, not harvesting, but actually processing products that are certified organic, and then that is expanded into the actual sales of those products. So we've always done a little bit of it, but that's where our experiences first began.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much. Then continuing on from there, then we conducted phone interviews with a current meat processor in Arkansas, and you will see that shortly whenever Keith is discussing that. And then obviously there's a lot of online material available, and we availed ourselves to as much of that as we could. I will share this with you that we are not going to share any of our client information. That's all confidential, obviously, with one exception, and you will see that, okay, as we discuss what happens in Arkansas. You will see the one exception, okay? And they are aware that we are going to share their information, no problem. Okay? So, excuse me, please. Just to provide a brief background, a general background of Arkansas ag statistics, and I believe that most of the people in attendance here from the poll are ag producers in Arkansas, or at least affiliated with ag production in Arkansas. And so most of you probably know this information, but it never hurts to just review it. And that is listed here. So Arkansas is in the top third of the states in the nation for ag cash farm receipts. 41% of the land mass in Arkansas is comprised of farms, with 57% comprised of forests. I think that's pretty standard knowledge for most ag producers in the state. There are 37,400 farms in Arkansas on 13.7 million acres. Just as an aside, on a personal note, my wife and I have recently moved to Arkansas 9 years ago, so we're not natives, but we've been here almost 10 years. And having been here 10 years involved in agriculture in Arkansas, I was kind of shocked at that. I didn't realize that there were 37,000 farms in Arkansas, but there are. Arkansas is number 10 in the US as far as animals and animal product value at almost $9 billion. And of course, everyone knows that the vast majority of that is coming from broilers, number one, then with cattle and calves coming in at around 600 million. So that seems pretty logical, and I think most people would understand that right away. Okay, as far as organic production, there has been some organic production in Arkansas, and it is growing, and the numbers are listed for you there. From 2012 and 2017, it grew from 32 farms listed in 2012 up to 69 farms in 2017. So we are seeing a very rapid rise in organic production, but as we have alluded to, it is still very small. The product sales from 2017 went from 24 million up to 70 million in 2022. Again, a very rapid rise, but compared to $9 billion of ag sales, organic sales is very, very small. So these are all nice to know, but it clearly demonstrates exactly what we're saying and why this project is important. Okay. If we look at the organic standards and the benefits of organic production, the standards are clearly defined by the NOP, the National Organic Program, which is administered by USDA, and it is published in the Federal Register. If anybody has difficulty finding it, please give us a buzz and we'll help get you in the right direction. But it's easily found if you just excuse me, please. If you do an internet search. Excuse me, I just am recovering from that nasty strep throat that went around Arkansas. Okay, the benefits to organic are listed here. We see people finding that it fits small producers quite well because it is highly intense, requires a highly intense level of management. But there is an opportunity for high margins to serve as a reward for that high level of intense management. From the consumer side, there are perceived health benefits, including prevention of exposure to harmful pesticides and other synthetic compounds that people are more acutely aware of today than in the past. As far as the sales demand is concerned, the sales of organic meat and poultry jumped 14%, this is nationwide, in 2024 to 3.1 billion across the nation. Okay, and that seems like a lot, but in the food industry, again, it's quite small. However, and this is a key point, U.S. organic beef production falls extremely short of demand, making it a highly, highly niche market, largely met by imports. And that is, for example, Verde Farms is the largest organic beef company in the US, and 100% of their beef is imported. They get no organic beef from US producers at Verde Farms. They're the largest one. So that just demonstrates again the niche level of market that this space occupies. Okay, before we commit ourselves completely to organic, we need to look at specialty branded products, not just including organic, but a little bit larger than that. Okay, so when we look at specialty branded beef, we certainly see organic beef like Verde Farms, but they're getting 100% of their beef from imports. We also have grass-fed beef in the US. Both of those terms describe certified production label programs, but they are mutually exclusive. Okay. USDA is the arbiter of organic, and AGA, American Grass-Fed Association, is the arbiter of grass-fed. They do have their own label, and it is recognized, and it's achievable just like organic, but you do have to follow their rules from AGA. It is not administered by USDA or FDA. Here's a key component. It is possible to label, to have the label include both certifications. It is certainly possible, and we see that. Both are in high demand because of perceived health benefits, which we have just reviewed there. Certified organic is the most difficult to achieve. Let's be clear. It is very difficult to achieve, but it commands the highest margins, and you're going to see that shortly. Certified grass-fed, especially in Arkansas, will be much easier to achieve because Arkansas has a lot of grassland. It does not command as high of a margin. And certified grass-fed does not require the processing plant to be certified, whereas organic, the certification must be from the livestock production all the way through the processing plant, must be certified. When we look at pork and poultry for specialty branded, pork, as with the beef, okay, it can be labeled organic and or pasture raised. But again, with pork, it is much easier to get a pasture raised label than it is an organic label. Okay. The AGA pasture swine standards are published. They're published for all of these species, and they're available. Again, they're easy to find, but if you have difficulty, please let us know and we'll help you there. They require livestock production practices that include a forage-based diet from pasture. This is for pork. Animal health and welfare, no antibiotics, and no added growth hormones. And one thing that causes this to be more difficult than conventionally raised pork is that the forage or the pasture or the browse must provide 60% of the animal's feed intake. And again, these are not ruminants. And so you're going to understand, Keith will share with you the sacrifices, the production sacrifices that occur whenever you deal with these kinds of animals. For poultry, chickens labeled as pasture raised must spend the majority of their lives on rooted vegetative pasture. Same thing, they are not ruminants, and so they are consuming this cellulose-based diet, and there are sacrifices that must be stood. Okay. This introduces the project, and so what I'm going to summarize briefly is to say that organic and other specialty production is mutually exclusive, okay? There are different certifying bodies, USDA versus AGA, and the product may be certified for both. And with that introduction, I'm going to hand this off. Oh, sorry. A couple of other things. There are different variables for the different species. Excuse me, guys, sorry. There are different variables for different species, and both of them do realize a premium. Organic and grass-fed both do realize a premium. Organic is more difficult to achieve. I think you got a clear understanding of that. Organic may be much more costly, and there's a discussion in the report about that, especially for non-ruminants, and the processing plant must be certified. Now with that, I'm going to hand it off to Dr. DeHaan. So Keith, take it away.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. We're going to start off with talking about the barriers that Matt introduced to market entry. The biggest barrier is the small size and small volumes of products sold by each producer. And that just is a function of critical mass. These small volumes are adequate for farmers markets and selling directly from the farm, but very problematic for selling to retail and food service. So if you actually want to get a significant volume of products sold, you have to almost get outside of the farmers markets. Farmers markets are wonderful, but they are seasonal and they do have a restrictive audience. So that is why we don't get more volume product sold, and therefore it doesn't feed back to the production as well. The solutions, and I've just listed two here. There could be others. They could have several farms. They could be
counties, or they could uh, or would pool supply and market under a common brand name. And so that even could be possible to actually have one single statewide program if we could coordinate that. That'd be a large effort, but it could be done. So just a simpler way would be taking several farms and doing it under a common brand. Or number two, work out a supply agreement with an existing meat marketer. We have a business relationship with Meyer Natural. They are always looking for supply and looking for those supply agreements in various states. If it does line up with a processor that they move all of their product through. There are others as well, but that's one that we are familiar with. Let's look at the meat value comparisons. This is real world data. This is our clients' information. Now, I will mention that all of them, the information we received are from our clients outside the state of Arkansas, but we think it's germane to Arkansas as well. Let's just take ground beef, organic versus conventional. With the same fat lean ratio, there's actually $100 premium.
100%.
I'm sorry, 100%. Thank you, Matt. 100% premium for organic ground beef versus conventional ground beef. That's pretty significant. Now, if there are several companies that will actually sell organic trim to further processors that sell organic ground beef, and in that particular case, when you're just selling organic trim, it's generally running around $1 premium for, again, just about all the fat lean ratios. Okay.
Which is quite significant. That dollar per pound for trim is very, very high.
That is correct. It is. All right. Certified grass-fed beef versus grain-fed beef is where we get a lot of our questions. And this is pretty true. Generally demands a 15 to 20% premium grass-fed versus our traditional grain-fed beef. Certified pasture-raised pork versus conventional pork, and there's not a lot of it available, but what we do see that's sold is about double, 100% premium. Pasture-raised chicken and turkey versus conventional poultry, and here might shock you a little bit, 400% premium without giblets. So, we have a client in California that are selling organic Freedom Ranger whole chickens for around $35 to $40. And as you know, you can go into Sam's Club or you can go into Costco and get that same one for about $5 to $7. So that's even greater than a 400% premium.
Well, you're getting a conventional chicken for $5 versus a Freedom Ranger pasture organic for $35.
For $35, correct. And you can stack them. Mac mentioned before that it is possible, even though different certifying bodies, you can stack the margins so that you could have a pasture-raised chicken and turkey, and maybe even beef and pork. And if it's certified organic, you can actually add an additional 50 to 100% premium over organic alone. A little less opportunity there for beef, but definitely for the small stock, the pork and the chicken, that has been realized. Okay. Now there are sacrifices. Everything comes with a trade-off. Grass-fed cattle grow slower and are harvested at lighter weights than grain-fed cattle. Cattle started at similar weights may reach market weights 5 months slower. That's on average. Could be some a little faster, some a little, depending on where you are in the United States. And or possible 200 pounds difference actually in their market weight. And again, that's over a lot of animal units that we've analyzed. Then the hogs, they also grow slower. If you recall from Matt's slide, 60% of the diet is going to be forage-based, grass, browse, etc. That's not grain. There's a lot of caloric difference in between pasture and grain. So you can see that 10 pounds lighter at harvest. Actually, if you think about that, that's really not bad considering that's at 60% of the diet. Pasture-raised chickens result in 1 pound less dressing weight with 20% less growth rate than conventionally raised chickens. Again, depends on where the chickens are raised and depends on the amount of pasture available to those chickens. If they're in northern states, you might even get even less growth rate because you're just not getting the calories out of the pasture. But down, especially in Arkansas, we think that that's about would be very realistic. Feedstuffs, organic pasture yield could be less than 10% tonnage. We have seen it where it's been equal, but that would not necessarily be every case. So we would assume there's about 10% less tonnage. Organic corn yield, one study said 41 bushels per acre lower. This is a recent study. Now, looking at inspected plants in Arkansas, specifically to Arkansas, this is the USDA state and custom exempt plants. The USDA inspected meat and poultry plants, there are 29, and they're labeled as small as far as the HACCP rules are concerned with the USDA. But of those 29, only 6 meat plants harvest, and only 3 poultry plants harvest poultry. So if you look at that now, we're only talking about 9 that actually harvest the animals. The rest of them all just process. The custom exempt plants in Arkansas are 74 of them, many more. No inspection other than local health department, and they may not enter commercial trade. So they're really designed for producers that want their animals back, and they take them to a custom exempt plant, and they get all their volume or all the meat back from their own livestock. Organic certified meat plants, there are 0 currently. Okay. Organic certified poultry plant, there is 1, and we're going to talk about that one in just a minute. On-farm chicken processors, there must be under 20,000 birds per year to be exempt from federal inspection. So that's a pretty common thing throughout the United States. It's a national exemption. But the products that come out of that, you can sell them, but they have to sell them within the state lines. They cannot go beyond state lines. Okay, I mentioned this company, Cypress Valley Meat Company. I'm featuring it for 2 reasons. One, we have a history with them. We've done some work for them in the past. Number 2 is they have expressed a lot of interest in participating in this particular project and to help us, to guide us, even trying to expand it statewide. And that we're going to take. That's very valuable to us. So let's go back. It's a beef. They have 2 plants. They have a beef, pork, lamb plant in Pottsville. And they just recently have gone a $4 million expansion, and they can harvest 40 meat equivalents per day. They'll do hogs there as well. They do some lambs there as well, but about 40 beef equivalents. Then they have an organic certified chicken harvest and processing plant in Clinton. That's under the name of Natural State Processing, LLC. They're the only certified organic processing plant in the state, and their capacity is 4,000 birds per day. Their management team, Brandon Dunn, who we know, Chris Shaw, who we know, and his brother, Andrew, who did pass away in the COVID years, which we know very well. We worked very closely with him. And then Ben Weinbrink is the CFO. They have experience managing and advising other custom plants, and they actually managed a facility in Oklahoma. And we think that would be valuable for us in our next phase of our project. And they have expressed a willingness to participate in a statewide specialty and organic livestock and poultry project. I will tell you that they're not the only meat processing facility in the state of Arkansas that will be cooperative with us. We have talked to at least 2 more that also are willing to do that. And we're not completely done with our interviews with processors. We've got a few more to go. But what we have found were very encouraging to us. We found at least 3 plants that are very interested in this project and are very interested in participation going further and even willing to get certified organic. Okay. Now, if we're considering other plant options, if those 3 plants or others are not capable of meeting the demand that we are going to generate, here's some other things to consider. On-farm processing can be done both under exemption and inspected if it's beyond 20,000 birds. These poultry plants on farm are modular. And there's there is a company in Missouri that actually manufactures them to suit. And the company is called Plant in a Box. And we've gotten quite close to them. We know them pretty well. The cost is very, very good, of $150,000 for each facility. It can accommodate 1 to 8 workers. 400 birds processed per week for 50 weeks equals the 20,000 birds to keep it under the exemption. So that gives you, so if you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do 1 day a week, I'm going to take 1 to 2 workers, and I'm going to process these birds under exemption. You could do it 1 a week for 50 weeks and you'd be there. But it can accommodate up to 8 workers. And the plant and equipment can process up to 500 birds per hour. So you can see that you can it could be a pretty serious processor if you had up to 8 workers in this facility. Now let's move beyond poultry and talk about multiple species. We are aware of new plants in some of our clients, so that's how we're aware of them, in Oklahoma, Missouri, Alabama, Ohio, and Texas that are capable of processing a minimum of 15 head of beef equivalents per day. So we do know these plants are being built, and we're very, very fortunate to provide consulting services to several of them. Now, the cost of those it all depends what whistles and bells and so on, but their plants are averaging around $5 million for about a 15 head per day beef equivalent harvest. There are a very small number of plants that can process poultry in the same facility as other species. And we are aware of one in Kansas, and we are aware of one in California that does that in a special wing of the plant where they process poultry in the same plant where they do cattle, lambs, hogs, etc. Okay, the operational expense of that number 2 and number 1 we have detailed in our written report. So if you're interested in looking deeper into that, that information is available to you. Other considerations for new plants: zoning. It kind of depends on the county. Every county has a different zoning requirement, and you have to check into your county to see what's permitted. The byproducts and waste products are always a liability. The bones, the blood, the fat, the tissue, the feathers, the hides, and so on need to be dealt with. We're finding there's a lot of interest across the U.S., except for in California, because they can't do it in California, for composting. And that is a good way to actually deal with it. You've got to have the equipment to deal with it. But at the end of the day, you've got a product that you can sell as organic fertilizer in most cases. So that's something that in phase 2, we're going to dive a little deeper and put in a little bit more information on how that could be accomplished. As far as the effluent and water use in chickens, somewhere between 7 and 9 gallons of water per chicken are slaughtered. Cattle, about 300 gallons per carcass, possibly less. Hogs, about 100 gallon, possibly a little bit less. The wastewater options are a commercial-sized septic system, which is very common. A lagoon, which is, we work with a lot of plants that put in lagoons. Then the municipal sewers in some cases. If you're close to a municipality, you might be able to tap into a municipal sewer. All right, permits and certifications. They do require a USDA grant of inspection if you're going to go beyond the exemption on the poultry side. They do require that. We work with that to help plants get their grant of inspection. And environmental permits. That is also a requirement, especially if you've got to discharge. If you've got to discharge your waste, you do need an environmental permit, and it is required that licensed engineer sign off on that. Okay. Now, is it feasible to increase specialty branded livestock and poultry processing in Arkansas? And I'll add in that also is organic. Is it possible to increase that processing in Arkansas? Yes. All participating producers must have a clear financial plan for how to produce, process, and market their products and the operating capital to carry it out. And that's where we help a lot of our clients, is make sure they have all those things. Number two, the processing is accomplished through existing and or future plants that also are well capitalized and have a financial plan for sustainability. The worst thing that can happen is you start working with a plant and they can't make it. That really creates new problems for them as well as you. There are some situations where producers are involved in some way with both of these, with number one and number two, which helps diversify their financial opportunities and guarantees products to sell to the customer. So that's very common for us, is where the actual producers get involved in some way or another in the processing side, or has some influence on the processing side. And then CAFF could serve as a conduit for organizational support for the above items. And that will be addressed more into phase two. Now, here's what has been approved, and we're really excited about this, is we're going to interview existing meat and poultry plants we already have. There's a few more we have to do yet, to see if they have an appetite for expansion and need for capital. We want to survey each facility's limitations or opportunities. And what we found so far is we have found some really interested processors that do want to participate in this. Found one that didn't, and we're very short with us, and was really kind of surprised us. But the three of them really do want to grow with this project. With the Arkansas Cooperative Extension help, we want to survey existing farms about expanding the niche market opportunities and gauge willingness to participate in expansion of the niche business. And some on this call today might be interested in that. So we would like to talk with you. We can get your phone numbers. We would like to talk with you specifically, or at least maybe somebody within the Arkansas Cooperative Extension would like to talk with you. We will have an interview script to actually just have a little bit of a structured discussion with you. Now, to go along with number two, and this is why Dr. Gibson is so good with this project, is we're going to develop organic and grass-finished beef and organic and pasture-raised chicken financial models to share with producers to help them make that decision. So if they're not in it today, and they said, well, I'd like to participate, but I have no way if I'm going to get a return on my investment. It's an investment for me. It's a change of way I do business. Is it worth it? Well, we're going to help develop a generic model to help you make that decision. And maybe it won't be. It all depends on your situation. And then number four, we're going to develop a business plan encompassing statewide marketing, processing, and production of which producers and processors can participate, all in an attempt to attract greater margins for producers. It's got to do that. That's the common goal of this whole thing, is to create new opportunities for both the producer and the processor. And hopefully everybody can make money. So what are some strategies CAFF can follow in the Arkansas for organizational support? Let's take the first one, grants. They can actually be a facilitator to help fund planning, design, equipment, and operations through the Arkansas Department of Ag. And there have been some grants from the Arkansas Department of Ag that's been given out. And then the USDA. The most recent is, Matt, I'm going to ask you what that acronym stands for again. It's Meat
and Poultry Processing Expansion Program.
I hate acronyms. That's why Matt's always here. He always are good with the acronyms. And there's their fourth grant funding is going to be released or going to be announced very, very soon. A couple of the processors that I've already interviewed are going to actually apply for that grant to expand their plant. So that's pretty exciting. Okay, number two, we're going to invite marketers of organic beef, grass-finished beef, pastured pork, and pastured poultry to an open industry-wide discussion to gauge their interest in marketing an Arkansas coordinated statewide production and processing program. And we're going to invite several of those. The one we know is Meyer Natural. We're going to invite them, but there's going to be others that we're going to invite as well. I think they'd like to see what our capability are in the state of Arkansas, and I think you'd like to hear from them what it takes. So we're excited to actually host that forum with the other participants in this project, and you'll be listening for more announcements about that later. Number 3, we're going to develop and refine a business plan for this Arkansas coordinated program, and that's the last step of the process. So it'll be a little bit down the road because we have a lot of learning to do. But we have a lot of exciting learning to do, and that's what really what brings us to the dance is that learning and bringing it together and helping building it into something that everybody can participate in wants to. Number 4, investigate possible partnerships with private investment funding sources to help finance this embryonic business development. It takes money to change an operation, obviously. It changes money to expand a plant. It takes money to go out and actually create a new marketing venture, and that's going to come from somewhere. So we have people that we know that do this type of thing, and I'm sure that there's other funding sources that we could access as well. So we are going to investigate what that would look like once we actually put all the pieces together. Okay. And that's the end of my discussion. I want to thank you for your attention to this. And I guess Margo, we're going to do questions.
Yes, if there are any questions, we can take them. Before we end today, I do want to share a couple of resources and have you complete an evaluation survey, but now is the time for questions. There was a question in the chat about if we will share this presentation, and yes, we will follow up with all of the webinar registrants and share the presentation, a copy of the report, which you can access at the link I shared in the chat. We will also post the recording of this webinar. So if you want to come back and watch it again and see parts of it, that will be available as well. But if there are any questions, feel free to put them in the chat or come off of mute and ask.
Hey, this is Chris. Question on if we're doing poultry processing on the farm under the 20,000 bird exemption, is there anything specific other than following the normal organic standards for cleanliness that we have to do to become certified organic for processing?
No, nothing out of the usual. All the standards are listed, and it is possible to do it on farm. It's just that you got to make sure that all the calories taken in by those chickens is organic. So in other words, if you're going to be supplementing with grain and soybean meal, it's got to be organic certified grain and soybean meal.
Yeah, which we already do, so we're fine there. I know we've got to certify it. We're going through the process to certify our pastures this year and everything, but I mean, we would prefer to do all on-farm processing anyway, but the other challenge that I have here in my region is that there are 0 certified organic processors. We're down in Puerto Rico, so it's a little bit of a unique challenge with us.
Very interesting. Well, you want us to come down and build you a plant?
I'm currently standing in my mini plant packing for market today. So, but we are, like I said, we are working on our organic certification now, and it's the getting through some of the local health regulations has been it's been a little bit interesting, but hopefully we have some help this year from Florida organic growers, and also from the folks at Flower Hill Institute are helping us a little bit as well,
Sure.
Trying to navigate through a lot of that stuff. So, I mean, our our hopes is to eventually be able to have the permission to at least do custom exempt as well on beef and lamb and pork as well. So, but we're gonna start with getting permission for chickens and go from there.
Great.
That's
Great.
great. I would just suggest to talk to your organic certifier. There is for organic processing and handling, there is a different additional organic certification. So definitely talk to your organic certifier about what would be required, like you said, to get your on-farm facility certified organic for organic processing.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, as a side note, Chris, we know the Flower Hill guys quite well, and we're working on a project with them right now, as a matter of fact. So that's a good group. We know them and like them very well.
Good, good. Yeah, I've only met them in person a couple times. We're working with Dave mostly, but definitely seems like a good group of folks.
They are. They are. They are. They are. Sorry. Sorry.
Great. Are there any other questions? Okay, I do want to share just real quick some resources. So hopefully you can see that. Um, I would encourage you if you're interested in organic livestock production, pasture-based production, marketing, working with processors, and we have a lot of resources available on the ATRA website for both production and processing. And then the Center for Arkansas Farms and Food and their Arkansas Organic program, which is sponsoring this webinar today. They have a lot of great events if you are interested in transitioning to organic production and all things related to organic agriculture in Arkansas. So you can visit the website listed here for their events and other resources. Once again, this is the link that takes you to the report that Drs. Gibson and DeHaan worked on and presented today, and there's a QR code for easier access. Once again, today's webinar was supported by the USDA Transition to Organic Partnership Program from the Midwest region with our partners, the Center for Arkansas Farms and Food, NCAT, and Food and Livestock Planning, Inc. So please take a moment to check out those resources. And then, if I can see my screen here, I am going to, as we finish up, I am going to launch one more poll. This is an evaluation poll. Lets us know, hopefully you all learned some things today. And you can answer these questions, and you're free to leave after you answer these survey questions. They are anonymous, and we really thank you all for participating today and joining us. And we will follow up with resources. If you are a livestock producer here in Arkansas, definitely stay tuned. And I think if you're willing to participate and talk more about this project, I'm sure Dr. Gibson and Dr. DeHaan would love to visit with you.
Yes, we would.
Do we have time for one more question
Of course.
from me? We have my question. I'm sorry, my video is being strange. But has to do with gauging, Matt and Keith, if you have a sense of the critical mass of production we would need to have in Arkansas, let's say specifically for beef, organic beef production to make organic processing economically viable for a processor? Do you have a sense of that? I think you're muted, Keith.
Yep, you guys are both muted right now, Keith and Matt.
Okay, go ahead, Keith. Can you hear Keith now? Go ahead, Keith.
Luke, in the report, I don't know if you've seen it, but we actually do some mathematic calculations on what it requires for acres and so on to get to actually supply a plant with all certified organic product. It's pretty substantial. Kind of surprised us too when we did the math on that. So if that doesn't answer your question, Luke, I don't want to go through the exact. I remember it was about 50 bushels of corn per one animal, and you take multiples of just one animal. If you would use a one animal unit, for example, and 50 bushels of corn, that would be organic corn, and then just multiply that by how many animals it's going to take. We always like to use a plant about 15 to 20 head per day is about a reasonable plant amount of capacity that would make sense for the owners of that facility. So you figure that out, you can kind of calculate how many acres of organic corn it takes. And then soybean, not only can you have to produce it, but you have to actually extract the soybean meal. So you have to find a processor to be able to do that. I guess the point where it's a little discouraging, Luke, but it's doable. And you can go out and actually purchase. It may be even cheaper to purchase organic feed rather than to produce it yourself and just raise the livestock. So there's a lot of different options you can look at. All of them do require some more expense than just doing it the traditional way.
Did that answer your question, Luke? Is that where you were going?
I think, Keith, you were thinking more on the, input side of livestock production. I was curious more on the side of
On
how
the
much
output.
organic livestock production we would need to see in the region to support a processing plant going through organic certification to be able to process organically.
You are correct, Luke. I did take it wrong. That's a great question. I don't know the answer to it right now. I think some of that answer lies in our interviews with these processors. How much, if they had a number of producers approach them wanting them to get certified, about how much volume would that represent to actually convince them to change? In each case of the three interested parties that we've talked to, they already have producers that are actually selling organic product in the commodity world because they can't get it processed. So they are willing to make that jump. And I think maybe this project that we're involved in with your help, I think will help them make that decision and producers make that decision as well. So I wish I knew the exact number. I don't think there is an exact number yet, but we'll try to dig down and see if we can't get closer to the answer. Did I do nothing but confuse you, Luke? Or
No, that's that's great. I know it's not a straightforward answer, but no, thank you for providing that insight. And yeah, thank you both for your work on this and a fantastic webinar today.
Yes.
Hi,
Yes, go ahead.
Margo.
Hi.
So I am actually in Louisiana and really interested because I'm in the NRCS Organic Transition Initiative and doing livestock as well as vegetable production. And so my question is, because as a small farm, we want to stay fairly small and sustainable. In looking at your scenarios, piggyback on what Luke said, I would be really interested in figuring out how many small farmers in, say, North Louisiana would we need to come together to support an organic processing facility. I currently process in Texas. So there are two things, because if you're in Arkansas and you're close enough to me, I can always come up there. But we're currently processing in Texas, And the challenge is they're not interested in doing the organic. So I would be interested in facilitating that on-farm processing facility in North Louisiana, but I don't have the capacity to support it. So how many additional farmers would we need to be able to do that?
So Donna, let me ask you a question to clarify. Are you talking about poultry or are you talking about beef or pork?
I do poultry, beef. Well, I don't do beef yet, but I'm literally fencing right now for sheep, goats, and cattle to run a multi-species rotational grazing.
Okay.
Um, but on the scale of 25 acres. So my
Okay.
maximum head of cattle is 50. So, that's the thing is capacity. And yes, there
Right.
is available land to expand, but the reality is I don't want to go that far. So, but I do have land that I could put a facility on.
Right. So if you remember from the presentation, an on-farm poultry processor that can be underneath the USDA exemption for a federal inspection is 20,000 birds per year, which is 400 birds per week, which is 80 birds per day. So to run a plant at that size, which would be significant enough to supply a good output, but still fall underneath the federal exemption standard, would be 80 birds per day. So you got to have
So
five
we're
people producing 80 birds per day
80
every
birds per day.
week.
So we're working on the on-farm poultry side.
Yes, ma'am.
So that we're already under the 1,000, but we're working on the 20,000. So we have a facility for that. I did look into the meat in a box, plant in a box, for the sheep, goats, pigs, and eventually cattle. Um, so that's more because not just the plant in a box, but to do the cattle, I have to actually have a physical building added on to that to be able to raise it up high enough to be able to do cattle. So that's a whole infrastructure build that would go along with the plant in a box. So that's sort of where I would be interested in, sort of the feasibility of that and how many
Right.
other farmers and how many head of cattle and sheep and goats and pigs that I would need to do that because I know I don't have the capacity to do it myself.
Right. And so you're exactly correct for the large species. For the mammals, you would not, we have found for the mammals that the mobile processing is not the best solution.
It's not bad in small stock,
Yeah.
but cattle's
Cattle,
difficult.
no. For sheep and goats, a mobile processing is probably okay.
Yeah.
Hogs, you're kind of borderline, but for cattle, it needs to be a fixed facility. And as Keith
That's
described, it needs to be minimum 15 head per day.
15 head per day.
One
And
five, 1.5, 15, 1.5.
right. And that's the number. So
That
that
would be the
would
minimum
really,
size.
Yeah, to make any money.
To make money. Right.
They're
right.
to be free, but they're not going to make any money.
Right. Right.
That's what I wanted to hear. And
Right.
But
so that's what we would need.
custom process for your friends and neighbors and people
Right.
that are people that in the neighborhood.
Exactly. Did you hear Keith's follow-up?
I didn't hear it. Sorry.
If you had a 15 head a day plant, you would be able to kill your own animals, but you would also be able to custom process for your friends and neighbors and cooperators. And that calculates out, that, just so you know, that calculates out to 3,750 head per year. So just around 4,000 head per year is what a 15 head per day plant would be. And that the production out of that is that would be a lot more significant than we have in Arkansas right now, obviously, because we have zero, but that's not a huge product. That's a very small sliver of production. That's a very, very small sliver of actual consumption potential for Arkansas. Very small sliver.
And see, in my case, what I think I would be looking at is, because we wouldn't meet it on cattle alone, but I think that if we were going to do sheep, goats, and pigs along with cattle, by partnering with other farmers who are doing similar things, that we may be able to meet it. So if we had, you know, X amount of days for cattle, X amount for sheep, and sort of the numbers where you said 15 head a day for cattle, then to figure out how many head a day for sheep or goat, how many head a day for swine, and then, you know, put the numbers together to see if we can do it with the multi-species.
And we know what those numbers are, Donna. Those numbers are 3 times for the hogs. So for 15 head of cattle, that plant would be able to process 45 head of hogs per day.
Okay.
And 4 times the amount for lambs. So 60 head of lambs per day. And if you're doing goats, if you're just doing the kill and hang whole carcasses, you can do 6. If you're doing lambs and you're just doing the saddles, you can do 5. If you're doing the complete cuts, you can only do 4. Three for hogs, lamb complete cutout would be 4, lambs just the saddles would be 5, and goats, if you're just doing the whole goats, would be 6.
Would be 6.
3, 4, 5, 6 for hogs.
3, 4, 5, 6.
Hogs,
Thank you.
lamb cutout versus lamb saddles versus goat whole.
And Donna, we would be willing to talk to you offline anytime you want to call us too, so we don't take too much time here for other people that may not be interested. So we'll be happy to talk to you in the future.
I would love to have a follow-up conversation. Thank
Yes,
you.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Thank you. And thank you for your question. Those are very insightful questions. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you. And thank you, Margo, for letting us go over.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that the question, others are interested in hearing that information as well. And I just thank you all. Thank you both again for this presentation. As a longtime Arkansas livestock producer, I am very encouraged and looking forward to the phase 2 of this study. I think, a lot of the information included in the report, once again, as a longtime livestock producer here, I could have told, yep, that those things track. And so hearing that there is interest in small plants, increasing their capacity, interest in, maybe potentially new processing operations is something that we all know is very needed desperately here in the state. And once again, I know that is the case across the country, access to small plants for our small scale livestock producers. So I'm really encouraged by this, and I'm looking forward to hearing more about your findings in phase 2. And maybe we can do another follow-up webinar when we have some results for phase 2 of the study. Once again, for all of our participants, thank you all so much for being here today, and we will follow up with the presentations and the resources and the contact information so that you all have access to that. So thank you for joining us today.
Well, we did our